Hey everyone, James Azar here with CyberHub Engage. Welcome to our virtual summit. I've got a really exciting session coming up right now. So excited about the two guys you're about to hear from. I promise you, do not drink warm or cold beverages that could destroy any electronics that are not waterproof during this session. I have a joker on staff for this one, and he's really good. I've got warm tea, and I'm not touching it. So joining me for this session are two very great guys from Cybriant. I'll have Byron and Andrew on here in just a second. This session is all about remediation, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with this COVID-19 crisis, and we're all in this crisis together. Just so you guys know, as I introduce Andrew and the group here, we are really kind of just trying to get our handle on now being forced to stay at home, because where all three of us live, where we could have been in the studio, all three of us now have to do this virtually, as you see. And not exactly my first choice, because I'd love to have these guys here in the studio and have some scotch with them, but I can't. So Andrew, Byron, welcome to the CyberHub Engage virtual summit in the COVID-19 crisis. Dun, 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 dun. I'm kidding. We don't do theme music. We're not that corny. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Byron, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty well. Thanks for having us.
He's the guy that's a joker. All right. Byron is the Director of Managed Services at Cybriant. Andrew is the Chief Technology Officer at Cybriant. And we are going to be talking today about remediation and a lot more to come with that. And I kind of want to kick this off with this whole idea of, working from home, right? And this whole concept of, we're talking a lot about this, which is, remote workers, securing the remote workforce. And we hear a lot of different ideas, but how do we do it and still maintain a level of productivity and kind of solve this problem? Byron, you want to kind of kick us off?
Yeah, I'd like to take just a minute to kind of describe the environment, if you don't mind. So,
shoot.
A lot of people don't really think about this, but the big issue with working from home or working, especially if we're going to be using our own home equipment, because some of us at work, we have desktops, we don't have laptops, and now we've been pushed out to our homes, which there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, except for the fact that at our work environment, somebody, most likely a professional, has gone through and really considered the applications that we're going to use, the type of threats that we're going to see, and they've designed firewalls and firewall rules with the idea of stopping those things from happening. When we get home, we have, at best, probably the firewall that came free from Comcast or has a monthly $5 service charge for it that we get from Comcast or AT&T that we actually don't even have control of. And so it turns out that the home environment is much more harsh or much more dangerous than what we would typically see in the office. And the other thing that's going to add to that is, we have the home PCs there. We have our kids on their cell phones, downloading games and playing the fun little things that they like to play, other than Candy Crush, watching videos, and maybe doing homework with their school gear and all the other IoT that's going to be in our house that's not really protected. Most of us don't think to patch. We don't think to have a lot of antivirus or expensive antivirus like we would typically have at work. In fact, most of us have a free version of something that's on our system, or we have whatever it was that came on our system when we got it. Maybe we forgot to update it. So we've got all those extra dangers that are lurking there for us to trip us up. Not only that, but we have a different class of thief that's going to be trying to break into our corporate office versus what's going to be hitting us at home. While they may not be typically as sophisticated, those same individuals, when they find good stuff, are more than happy to sell off the data they have to somebody who will go after that corporate class worker. So that's a little bit more different, or a whole lot more different environment for our typical work environment than what we tend to think of. And I'm going to let Andrew do a little bit of talking about the remediation portion of that now.
Well, yeah, to add to that a little bit, but we've also have had a lot of remote workers over time. one of the areas that we tend to forget about with companies is that we send people home with laptops. They'll go to Starbucks. They might connect to that profile that says Starbucks instead, and it has some cryptographic profile associated with it. And now it starts doing a man-in-the-middle attack on all their data, and that's quite common out just out there. And so that happens each day where we've been doing that, and we've been kind of forgetting about that as being the next front. So this is kind of bringing home the fact that we need to pay attention to those remote workers who are now often working from home on their home PCs and home devices. And the other part of that is that they've been working on their mobile devices for a long time, whether their phone, Apple or Android. They haven't been applying the same sort of security and protection, and yet they're still accessing work profiles from those devices. So I'd say that the problem has existed in a lot of different forms, but we're now just becoming much more aware of it due to the COVID crisis. And so, looking at remediation, how do we start looking at ways that people can be a bit safer? Well, that's a pretty deep question. I mean, do we want to dive down the laptop route? Do we want to look at the BYOD device first, or do we want to consider mobile?
So I'd say let's start with the BYOD device, because I think this crisis wasn't planned, right? No one expected for everyone to be in quarantine, for business to stop, for traffic to stop existing. Like, literally, there's no traffic jams. Like, it's great. Like, it's
Nobody
great.
expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Let me tell you, you guys know this because you guys live in the area I live in. We have a group of family of deers here. They typically never number more than 5. They're at 8 because none of them are getting hit by cars. They're just growing, right? Like it's inevitable. But let's start with a BYOD kind of policy, right, Andrew? I think that's kind of where it all started, which is most companies had a BYOD policy that now is very, very different. It used to be email on your phone, but now it's everything. And it could be not only on your phone, it could be on your home laptop. How are these policies now going to evolve, and how do we start remediating those?
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about what we did here at Cybriant? We had a disaster recovery plan. We've activated it multiple times. We had a hurricane come through a couple of years ago. We've had ice storms. We've had cases where we actually have had to use our business continuity plans as well, and we've never had a problem. We were able to continue on with little to no downtime. And what I mean by little, I mean maybe 30 to 60 seconds, and that's not too bad for a company size of 30. And so we felt that like we were prepared initially going into it, but then we realized instead of this 60%, we're going to be a lot closer to 100% work from home. And that's where we expected the industry to go with all the lockdowns and the shelters in place. And so we realized that, one, we're not going to be able to get enough laptops for everybody, or buy enough laptops quickly enough for everybody to deploy and manage them in an effective manner. Yeah, and most companies can't. That is a huge capital expenditure or a huge lease. If you can negotiate in time, then you have to worry about transit time. So you absolutely have to start considering those users, those BYOD devices like you're talking about. And so how do we ensure the security of our customers at the same time as ensuring that we don't infringe upon our users' rights? And so we've done a few things. The first thing we started doing is we started looking at setting up virtual desktops for our users in our Azure infrastructure. We set up policies so that there was no copy and paste between devices. We set up policies with Intune so that things were locked down and how they were connecting. We were locking down by IP address. We started looking at just-in-time access for our users as well. And so those were just operational items for connecting into our portals, which then have additional proxies that connect to our customer systems. So we have multiple areas or multiple barriers before we actually are able to even touch a customer environment. We saw that as important because we didn't want the possibility of data exfiltration. I don't expect that to ever happen from our employees, but that's what we hope, right? But we want to cover the possibility that it may happen. And so if one of our users' computers had been compromised, we want to make sure that whatever that compromised device was, it had multiple barriers before they could affect anything. So we started looking at that Azure infrastructure. We also started looking at the user's computer. There's a number of different things in terms of both policy as well as technologies that we have to get a handle over. If we're starting to look at the Australian top four, the top four things you must do in order to ensure a nation state excuse me, the number of things that you must do in order to thwart a nation state attack 85% of the time. Those four things are, first one is application whitelisting. Well, I did that 15 years ago, did that for about 5 to 10 years in multiple infrastructures. Highly effective, works great, loved it at the time. But in our common age, it really doesn't work, especially if we're looking at DevOps as well as BYOD environments. And so we, of course, work with AI-based endpoint protection as well as MDR technologies. The next step is making sure that all your third-party applications are patched. And then third is going to be making sure that your operating system is patched. The fourth, that's going to be locking down administrator rights. No way that's ever going to happen on a BYOD device. And so we focused on those first three things. We ensured that our users have corporate antivirus, and we made the decision to not actually view the URLs that they go to. There are some obvious privacy implications that we don't want to dive into there, and a lot of companies really need to consider that when they go to that BYOD approach. A lot of these next generation technologies have the ability to do deep inspection. They have the ability to look at URLs. They have the ability to actually actively spy on what their users are doing, and that's a violation of privacy. Your users have to know that you are still protecting their rights while they are protecting your customers at the same time. And so we started there. And then when we started moving into patch management, with the technologies we work with, we're able to handle vulnerability management for over 800 different applications. And so our third-party application problems are well covered there. The next set, it would be patching the operating system. We are actively patching the operating systems for our home PCs as well. And so now our users are set there as well. And then lastly, we also have our SIM agent feeding data back into our SIMs. And so we have a lot of telemetry data for things that could cause additional problems that might not have been seen from any of the other technologies. So from looking at those angles, we are doing a lot of things that we would do on our corporate devices, on our end user devices, to ensure that they can operate as though they were in the office. And then afterwards, we're adding that additional barrier so that when they connect to the corporate resources, they then are now logging into additional portals so that we have those separations.
So you look at that, and that's a lot of information, Andrew. I mean, I hope people were taking notes for that, because that was a lot of different things that you guys were doing at Cybriant, kind of from a remote workforce. But then, how do you start adjusting your corporate policies to fit in these times, and then rolling this out on your employees without really ruining productivity and ensuring that, now everyone needs to be at 100% and still work from home?
Sure. The good news is that we started considering this before the quarantines, before the lockdowns actually went into place. When they absolutely went into place, naturally we found that there were gaps, there were things that we need to resolve. And more than anything, though, we found that there was a lot of panicking. Not just from our employees, which actually handled it really well. And I gotta give props to them, because all of them were on board. They all pitched in. They all tried really hard to ensure that things would move forward and move forward effectively. But we made sure that there is a lot of communication. As a matter of fact, we established our battle rhythm. I think going into the second week. The first week it was more than anything a lot of hand holding with customers, making sure that everything was okay, the world wasn't going to end, and that we could still support them. And then, as we continued, we realized that, all right, well, we preemptively started this work from home policy. We're going to need to expand it to a full work from home policy. And even up to that point, as an organization, we had actually purchased UV light machines, we purchased ozone machines, we purchased ionization. We moved away from bleach scrubbing systems, like the bleach wipes, since over long-term exposure that can be toxic to people. We also looked at additional sanitization efforts. I mean, we implemented a lot of things moving into this whole process before we even had that full work from home, that whole work from home model. And so that allowed us to more than anything to ease into it. But I'd say more than anything, we had a risk matrix that we began with, and we were able to say, all right, well, in order to access certain data, you have to have a certain level of protection. And so, depending on that sensitivity of data, determined where you were on that matrix. And so, that was not intended for a pandemic. By no means. That was just intended for normal business operations. But we were able to simply adapt that and apply that to our user model. And so by over communications, eventually by establishing an effective battle rhythm and making sure that everybody was actively being called every single day, making sure that everybody's updating, make sure we're using Microsoft Teams to actively communicate with each other. We were able to weather a lot of the headaches that we could have run into. We did run into headaches, but we were able to get through them pretty well.
So I really want to pivot to Byron for a minute, because Byron started by describing the environment. And I kind of tend to agree with his environment, which is welcome to every parent's worst nightmare. Your kids are, I mean, if you want to be quarantined, you almost hope your kids are not with you. Like you hope it's a mini vacation, but that's not the case, right? You're kind of in this home environment where you have your kids playing games, streaming Netflix, YouTube, God knows what, TikTok, all that garbage that China makes. And how do you really start kind of mitigating those home risks in an employee's life, especially because, and I want to make this point because I've made it to other people during this summit, because everyone's always quick to point out the fact that, hey, I don't have this issue. I go, yeah, we're cyber folks. We're like 3% of the 100% of people that are at home that have, segmented home networks, different devices, and so forth. Most people have one laptop, one phone, one tablet, and everyone shares.
Yep.
And so how do you start mitigating that, Byron?
And that is probably the most dangerous environment, because you're not, when we're in the office, there's a lot of choices and decisions that we don't make. They're already made for us at the corporate level. Do I want to go to this website? Well, doggone it, it's blocked because for whatever reason, somebody saw fit to block gambling or pornography at the firewall. Maybe it's just a link that we clicked on and we didn't mean to do it, but, it got blocked from us, so we didn't have to worry about it. When we're at home, that decision tree changes. I'm now the CTO or the CEO of the environment, and I get to decide what I click on and where I go. And it's the same for every individual in the house, which is an incredibly dangerous situation because, well, as they always say, with ultimate power becomes the ultimate responsibility, and none of us are really all that responsible when we get right down to it because, we want to do what we want to do. So I can't tell every company what they should probably do in their environment, but what we decided to do was roll out our corporate antivirus to our home users, as well as the patch management so that we can make sure their systems are patched, because that is always the last thought. I know even myself on my wife's systems, I patch her operating system, but I hardly ever think to go out and patch the applications that are on her devices. Why? Because I do that crap at work all day long, and I don't want to come home and do it. So hers suffers. And she'll remind me from time to time, hey, it says it needs this or it needs that. And, I'll grumble a little bit, and then I'll do it because I love my wife and I like sleeping inside the house. So, there's those things that we do for our family because we have to. But for the most part, even as IT professionals probably do the poorest job of making sure that everything stays patched. That much more so than we would typically do at work. But, honestly, the normal individual doesn't patch anything because it's a pain in the bum. If I patch this, what's going to happen to my flight simulator or whatever it is the kids are playing these days? Is going to break something? If I just leave the system alone, maybe it'll just operate just fine, and I won't have the kids nagging at me because they can't get to TikTok or whatever the thing is that they're looking at today. and that's a pretty dangerous environment for our corporate users to be working on a normal basis. It's also a really bad idea in the first place, just because if we get phished at home and somebody knows information about us, they can easily get more information about us at work as well, because they have that information that they can use or leverage while we're at work. So, we've got my home email address. Maybe you somehow managed to scrape my corporate email address from, I don't know, LinkedIn or any of those other things that like to leak that type of data. Well, Google probably, because our or even from our website, because my email address is going to be on there. You have information about me at home, so you have the ability to carry on a conversation. So it makes it a lot more dangerous. So we need to think about those things as we send our users home to work from home. We're actually maybe not doing them a great favor if we don't set them up for success. And I think enabling them by helping them with antivirus, with patching, and with some of those other things, we could really help ourselves to avoid some of those major accidents. And lastly, if we don't help our end users get prepared for working from home and for these dangers that they're facing every day at home and don't know about, when something bad happens, we can't necessarily blame them for the things that happen to them, because we didn't take good care of them like we typically do in the office.
Yeah, and a lot of employees are used to their office environment, right? And in one of our previous sessions, we had a discussion around, people are at home, they're working from home, but when you're in the office and you're working, you're more concentrated. When you're at home, you're easily distracted. Kids comes downstairs, Mom, we're out of whatever. Dad, I want to get this. I need this. I have this question, and it's so easy to get it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to start looking to solve that problem so you can get back to what you're doing, and you really end up, subconsciously, but typical human behavior, going to a different website. Like you were talking earlier about whether it's, a gambling site or Amazon or Walmart or wherever, to look to solve that immediate need, that immediate problem right here and now. And it's hard sometimes to get back and for people to understand that. And that's a really great kind of idea. But a great kind of challenge for a lot of us, I'm sorry. But there's a lot of vulnerabilities in this remote workspace. And you said earlier, the guys that target you at home aren't necessarily the same guys that go after you in business. Could we see a merger of bad guys right now because of the situation?
Oh, I absolutely think so. And remember, it's like the poor company that was responsible for the Target breach. It wasn't a big-time nation state that went after them, discovered the hole, made their way to Target. It was a small guy, somebody who typically works in the smaller areas. They found the data that they needed, and they saw where it led to, and they said, this is really above what we normally do. So they sold that off to somebody else that could do more with it. The same thing is going to happen at the home side. We're going to see people that say, hey, there's a whole lot more here than what I could typically exploit. I can make more money by selling this off to somebody who can take more advantage of what's here. And so you've really broadened the base or the search base of who's able to attack you and make ways into your company if you don't protect your employees. And talking about the kids running up and down, my kids are grown now, so I just have a 125-pound Great Dane that comes in and grabs a hold of my sweatshirt and pulls my roller chair back when I'm trying to work. That's annoying.
That could also be very distracting. Although if you're watching Great Dane videos, that's a whole other thing.
Do other Great Danes do this stupid thing while I'm trying to work?
You go to YouTube, Great Dane video pulls owner while sitting at computer. Go. So let's do an exercise together, the three of us, okay? We're going to do a risk assessment on different devices, and let's talk about some of the risks and some of the ways we mitigate those risks together, okay? I'll start with home networks. Who wants to take this one?
Andrew does.
How about I take another one? I'll let you take that one, Byron.
Home nets. Uh, I would say that the majority of the home networks that are out there nowadays are managed by the internet provider, which is a plus and a minus. One, it's not my problem. It's there. I don't know it. I can't do anything about it. They set it up. I do my once a month. I get on. I check the speeds, and yeah, there's what they're supposed to be. I guess it's good. I mean, that's the typical response from homeowners. Not everybody owns their own hotspot or Wi-Fi access point like I do. Not everybody has their own firewalls that they built from scratch. Yeah, I'm the nerd that did that. But that's a lot to ask for a typical home user. So what we find is, Comcast owns it, AT&T owns it, whoever is bringing your service in for you is owning not only the firewall but also the Wi-Fi as well. So you can pretty much consider that nothing on your network is safe, simply because I don't know how many times we've read in breach reports that AT&T had a default username and password of something super simple that was probably published on some website somewhere or somewhere in one of their manuals so that everybody has it. Honestly, the techs that come out and set these things up and drop those off, a lot of them have access to data like that. So it's not a tiny amount of people that have access to those usernames and passwords that control your wireless. I would never consider that to be something that's safe. It shouldn't be necessarily trusted because you don't own it. So how do we secure that? Well, other than going out and buying your own equipment, probably the best thing for you to do is use VPNs. I mean, there's a number of decent VPNs out there that can do a pretty good job. You really want to do a little bit of research in them. There's some good ones and there's some bad ones. Some of them just sell your...
Name some of your favorite.
I actually use PIA, or Private Internet Access, and I've used those for a number of years. I don't use the typical DNS registers because, well, every time you do a search or everything you query on the internet is being recorded by the company who is providing your internet service, and they're selling that data off. You are as much a product as you are a customer, and that's one of the things you really need to remember. So there's a couple of things you could do out there. Cisco has, for the home user, you can use their OpenDNS still, I believe. There's also 1111 and 1100, which is
Cloudflare.
Yeah, thank you. Cloudflare offers a very fast and somewhat secure DNS searching, and basically what that does is it just kind of helps to keep some of your stuff private. But my favorite is VPNs. In fact, I use VPNs at home because Comcast doesn't like to let me use Netflix on my computer very frequently. That's funny because I can watch Netflix with my VPN nailed up, but I can't watch it without it. So
yeah, Comcast doesn't like the VPN on my mobile devices at all. It hates it so much. In fact, I can't even I have to deactivate my VPN to back up my mobile device. Otherwise, my mobile device's internet just gets shot because Comcast absolutely hates my VPN. And when I disconnect their router and I use my own router, they hate me even more.
Oh, wow.
Like I get phone calls.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm up in Cummings, and I've used my own router. I have my own everything except for the cable that comes into the house. It's not mine. That's about it. So.
Yeah, they really don't like me. I'm not their person. Andrew, let's look at the next one. So let's do a risk assessment on mobile devices, non-tablets. So we're talking iOS and Android mobile devices only.
Sure. So yeah, here's an area where people have been working for quite a while, and it's funny that you bring them up. We actually just finished a multinational risk assessment for an insurance organization on risk on mobile devices, and it was interesting to see how the different countries fare, because let's face it, there are almost no corporate mobile devices anymore. Almost everything is BYOD, and it was the same with this organization. You know, they weren't an outlier. They were the norm, and so I think there's a couple of realities we have to understand. If you can control your code, if you can control the hardware, and as well as the updates, then you're going to have a fairly stable device. There are two manufacturers that can do that right now. That's Apple and that's Google's Pixel phone line. If you own anything else, your phone has an 18-month lifespan at best. It's controlled by the manufacturer, and I'd say just plain assume that it's probably been compromised by some app, especially if you're using Android. We see it. Android Android people, please don't send me tons of hate mail. I understand, but use a Pixel if you want to use an Android, because there's so many vulnerabilities. They've been so prolific. Lots of great phones, but since they're controlled by the carrier, since the carrier can control the base code, there's not a lot that you can do except for getting some sort of mobile antivirus, or potentially adding into VPN software. At least in those cases, you can start redirecting your traffic. But if you have some sort of mobile antivirus, at that point you can start looking for those malicious profiles, which are really quite prevalent on Android devices. Similarly, you can start looking for those permissions that have been grossly over granted. And those types of things are often granted, and people forget about it, and then it continues with each update of the app or the device. And so, with the mobile antivirus, with these next-gen antivirus products, they can look at whether you have these malicious profiles installed, whether you have this outdated software, whether you're connecting to a potentially malicious access point. There are quite a few number of threat vectors, including the accelerometer. I mean, we can actually look at the data from the accelerometer and determine a person's password just by the typing habits. And so mobile's introduced a lot of threats, a lot of threat vectors that people simply haven't considered. Corporations absolutely have not considered. And so they're going to be a vulnerability to anybody. So what would I do? I'll go for it.
When you talk about, we looked at mobile devices. Let's go to IoT devices. Who wants to take that?
God, everybody hates IoT devices. Nobody wants to take that, James.
Well, you're going to take it, Byron, because you started talking first. Didn't you learn in school the first person to talk about something is the one that gets picked to do it?
Yeah, that's always the case. And to be honest, it's hard to say anything good about IoT devices. They're a lot of fun. I mean, if you have the lights that you can change colors, those things are a blast. They also are insanely insecure, and they're built to the lowest possible standard because they cost to keep the cost down.
Well, because let's be honest. IoT devices today, in this period of time of COVID-19, are being used more than ever before.
Oh heavens, yes, absolutely.
And
if I don't have to get up and walk into the bathroom to turn off the light in the bathroom, I'm not going to do it. In fact, I don't. I just installed an IoT switch in the bathroom just so I could turn the light off when my wife leaves the bathroom in the middle of the night, or whenever I'm ready to go to bed.
Be honest. You use it to turn off the light whenever she's in there taking a shower.
I do that too. Yeah, just because it's fun to hear people squawk every once in a while. But
what happened? Did electricity go out?
They find their way into our homes because they can save us time. They save us some steps, and they find their way into the corporate office because they saved somebody some time. And we're all looking for a way to either have fun or to shave off the physical activities that we have to do. And so they're cool. The problem with IoT devices is the fact that they are absolutely positively made as cheaply as possible. They're not really made with security in mind. They're made with, let's get the product out there and get the customers on it. And, we can show the world the cool things that we have and what we can do. That's the positive side of me. The negative side of me is yeah, we can gather all their information because we're going to get their username, a password, and an email address from them. And how many people use exactly the same username over and over again?
So real quick, Byron. So we've got Andrew here and myself, and so IoT devices is a very, very big topic, right? I think it's also one that has the greatest risk for a company. I think as a CISO myself, I don't worry about mobile devices, although I second everything Andrew said. Android users, go F yourselves. I'm kidding. No, right? Like, if you're in security...
Anyway, guys, he said it, not me.
If you are in security and you own an Android and you're on the Google Play Store, you deserve it when it comes. You deserve it. You knew about it and you ignored it. You know, you knew it was coming and you did it anyways. Shame on you. Shame. Shame. Right? Like, no excuse. IoT devices, kids buy them, wives buy them. It's not, you know, everything that we've discussed up until this risk assessment at this point can pretty much be decided with, you know, the person in the house who's a little bit more IT conscious and IT responsible to make a good decision, right? Parents that love their kids, get them iPhones.
I don't love my kids all that much.
Buy him an Android right now.
Maybe when they get a little bit older.
Parents who value Netflix, get a good home network. But IoT devices, you know, kids win them at all these different places they go to. They're everywhere. They're buying them at the dollar store, at the $5 store. You know, they go to the mall and they buy an IoT device. They go to friends' houses and whatnot. And so it's really a large threat landscape, because there's very few ways that people can mitigate the risk of an IoT device. So if we dig in, looking at an Alexa. Do any of you guys own an Alexa by Amazon? I love it when I speak to people who actually wear shoes and walk straight. You know, that's great.
Hey, come on, be nice to us hobbits out here. But
No. I mean, I'm the same way. I don't have any IoT at my home at all. Like, people come to my house and they go, "Well, James, you're into high-tech gadgets and you're a security guy." I was like, I don't buy anything IoT that I can't secure and know with certainty that I have some control of it. This is my home, my place where I want to be relaxed. You know, I even my security cameras are closed circuit.
Yeah,
that's how old school I am.
My IoT devices, which I have two switches in a bathroom that we're currently remodeling, they're both on their own VLAN, and they both have their own wireless network. So they're completely segmented off.
See, again, you're a smart cyber guy. You do that. Yeah. Go to gym next door. Right, I have a gym next door. He doesn't know how to do that. The guy's a lawyer. He has no clue how to segment his home network, and he's not going to spend money to do it because he doesn't think it's a threat.
Well, it's a $3 light bulb. Why do I need to spend $500 to have somebody come out and segment my network just to keep this $3 to $5 light bulb off my network? I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. And it really, I mean, does it?
Well, if you're, I think depending on what you do for a living, right? Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, if you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, if you're a cybersecurity professional, if you're an executive of any type of company, is that not something that you should be doing?
Oh, it absolutely is.
Well, we say that, but the problem is that these people just went out and they bought that big ass Samsung fridge that has a huge screen. They press the button, and it'll magically show them using the camera what's inside. And now they can see, oh, I have milk when they go into the office, because they really need to do that instead of just checking it when they leave the house.
With that really old version of Android on it.
There wasn't any sarcasm there whatsoever, I'm sure.
Yeah, we didn't get any hint of sarcasm from you, Andrew. None.
you have that Vizio smart TV that has a microphone implanted in it and is sending your telemetry data, because you want to be able to use the smart TV functions out of it. You have these different things that we just simply take for granted. And these are absolutely going to be in the CEOs' houses. These are absolutely going to be in lawyers' houses. I walk around. The whole Johns Creek area, Alpharetta County. It's a technology hub. Everywhere is a little McMansion. I go around to anybody's house, and I can see at least a handful of these things. And these people are IT engineers. They're programmers. There's a lot of security engineers, and so I think we begin by simply assuming that we're operating in a hostile network. Now, to be fair, I'm on Byron's side of the fence. The one IoT device that I actually have, two, my TV and my printer, they're on their own VLAN, and I've finally just disconnected my TV as well. On VLAN, on Wi-Fi. I actually have IoT separation as well, but that's not going to be the norm. And what we're doing is we have to say, all right, everybody who's doing work from home, what is your norm? How do we ensure that we're not going to piss off your wife? Because let's face it, it's not going to happen afterwards, or not going to piss off your husband, depending on if it's the wife who's IT savvy. How do we do that? And so we assume that the network is hostile, and we go back to what we were talking about earlier with home networks. Let's do that DNS firewalling. Let's look at a service like the paid-for version of Cisco Umbrella or what have you. That's going to catch most of the nasty stuff, because let's face it, a lot of these IoT devices are DNS based, and they're not going to be hard-coded IP based. Some of them will be, but with a lot of these, we can just simply nip it in the bud by DNS address. And so, if people are looking to secure their home networks as well as their IoT devices from their house, that's where I would start.
Yep. And Andrew's always big on bud nipping, so that's a good place to start.
Bud nipping or butt nipping? I mean, there's
either is, I guess both have very different translations. And if you ask Byron, he starts blushing. So that's the first I've seen Byron blush. So well done, Andrew. He's made Byron blush on a live virtual summit that will live forever in the Internet Archives, so we can edit this piece out and just put it everywhere. It can be the GIF. The one time Andrew made Byron blush.
No, there's been many. You just don't know Andrew.
So
there used to be a commercial a long time ago that the guy was taking his Nissan Pathfinder everywhere, and it would always go further. And then eventually he's like about to fall over a cliff, and it says too far. And we used to always tease Andrew that he would say, "Was that too far?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, that was like 10 minutes ago."
Tablets. Risk assessment on tablets. Is it similar to phones, or do tablets provide a different threat level than mobile devices?
I would say mobile devices, and so I lump mobile in the exact same category. Whether you have your phablet over here, or my wife's version, which is much smaller, and your normal phone, or your oversized tablet, they're all running the same operating systems, and so they'll have the same vulnerabilities.
So you would consider them to be one of the same?
Yep, I would.
Okay. So let's kind of summarize this session. And I kind of want to summarize it and give you each an opportunity to kind of share how would we start mitigating those risks? What are some of the simple stuff that we can do? And what are some of the stuff that security professionals should be looking at right now? Because, this COVID-19 isn't going away. For people who've been watching this virtual summit, they've heard me say this millions of times. Flu season's around the corner. Mm-hmm. After summer comes flu season. If we don't have a vaccination for COVID-19, we're going to be in a very, very similar place. All this quarantine is doing for people who don't quite comprehend why we're in quarantine is trying to allow us to build up in order to be able to deal with this. Unlike H1N1 and SARS and some of the other ones where we had time to build up, where the Chinese government wasn't hiding information, and wasn't withholding information and lying about information. And I'll make that crystal clear. You guys don't have to react. I'll say it. I'll take the heat. Chinese.
This is the first time China's ever done that.
Yeah. China has tried to take me down with every single disease. I've had H1N1. I've had SARS. I even got MERS when I was traveling in the Middle East several years ago, and I've got COVID-19 light. Every time China comes at me, I win. That's American greatness. That is America. You try to take us down, and we rise up every single time. And I just want to say that in your face, I'm still here. I ain't going nowhere. And how do we start addressing those risks? And how do we start mitigating them?
It's not the hardest thing in the world. A number of companies ago, actually, I was working in the Middle East as well. When I was in the Middle East, we actually discussed with our virus protection company at the time, giving or providing at a much lower reduced cost licenses for our home users. Because what we found was that we had a really tight ship because we were running two different types. We were running antivirus and whitelisting in the office, and we were catching really, really good knockoffs on a daily basis. It was very difficult to get into our network. But what we found was actually happening is our users were getting phished at home. So it was identified as being part of our company, and then they were attacking them at home. So we discussed with our antivirus vendor at that point, and we got a much reduced price on home PCs, and we just supplied the antivirus for their home PCs. Not all antivirus companies are going to be able to do that. Some of them will probably give you licenses for the duration of COVID, or for 60 days or something like that to help get you off on a good start. And maybe they're hoping to sell into your company the licenses for your home users. Brilliant idea on their part, but it's at least you're getting something that you can somewhat trust on those workstations to help protect them, and you're also giving something of value to your employees, because we're not here just to use our employees up and give them a few bucks at the end of the week and throw them away. We need a trust relationship that goes both ways. So that's one way to build it. The other thing is, Andrew said, there's more than just Cisco's DNS service, what was the name of it, Andrew?
Umbrella.
Cisco Umbrella. There's other services out there for DNS that we could honestly look at, getting subscriptions for the home users. There's a number of home DNS services out there that we could look at to help start to nail down those ends at homes. As far as vulnerability management, that's a little bit different story, because that's a completely different subscription base, and it's a lot more difficult to make sure that those systems are patched. And that might be, maybe we send out flyers every month and say, hey, these services or these applications are critical. Maybe we should go ahead and think about patching them at home as well.
Oh, man. Byron, sorry to interrupt. I just got a text saying school is now closed. The governor has closed school for the rest of the year, and there's a 2-week shelter in place starting Friday.
Yeah, well, I think there's no surprise with the current situation. I thought that when they sent kids to home for until after the Easter break, and then when the president said last week that, hey, this is probably, we hope to be reopened by Easter, but really he kind of walked back those comments and said end of April. And the way the school system works in Georgia, where kids are at the first week of May, no one's taking the risk of sending their kids back to school for 1 week.
What I figured is that whenever we're here in Atlanta, the very first sign of a snowflake, the city shuts down. Well, we've been getting a whole lot of yellow snow for the past week and a half. So I figured that was going to continue shutting down.
Yeah, well,
Georgia snow.
Yeah, well, welcome to the reality of COVID-19 is things are going to continue to change and continue to evolve. And we have to kind of understand today's, in today's world that we're going to have to deal with this, and this is going to have an impact on us until there's a vaccine and a way to contain this. And I think that when people start to go back to work in May, we're going to be wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
Social distancing in offices. I think people who can work from home are going to be told, work from home, come in 1 day a week for the team meetings that need to be done, and then, go back and work from home. There's going to be some really massive impacts because of this. And there's going to be a point in time where companies are going to look at this, and I think you said it early on, Andrew, they're going to look at this and they're going to go, hey, we can really just lock this up now and reduce our lease with our landlord and take less office space, and we're going to go to our CISOs and we're going to change our security paradigm, and we're going to look at how do we do this remotely, securely, safely, and with productivity and efficiency. And you know what? I give people 2 weeks to fall out of love of sitting in traffic jams.
Oh heavens! Yeah,
2 weeks.
I was coming and going from the office, and being able to make it in 35 minutes instead of an hour and 10 is heavenly. And whenever I walk into my office like I did this morning, that's even better. So.
Yeah, my commute has been about 15 seconds, give or take, depending on if I stop and look at something on the way down to my basement.
Mm-hmm.
Stop at the local Starbucks.
I have an espresso machine here, so I'm my local Starbucks, and it's so much cheaper. It's like 40 cents. It's great. It's like coffee at a gas station, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And all that day, James discovered avocado toast actually costs about 40 cents to make.
Yeah. That wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? But we live in a different world, folks. We do. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and joining us at the session. We are out of time for our session, unfortunately. I want to when social distancing is over, since we all live really close, we should get together, pour a little bit of scotch, and talk about this time and talk about what's coming next.
Yeah,
because I think what's coming next is amazing.
Cheers to that.
I'll give you my cup of ginger lemon tea, and it says you're the best, and that's for my wife. And she's constantly reminding me of that, and so I try to tell her, I've got COVID-19 light. I'm not going to die. I'll be just okay. Chinese have tried to take me out before on their own soil. I got the bird flu on Chinese soil.
Nice.
Wow.
And survived. Take that, China. But there's a lot to it. Folks, Andrew and Byron from Cybriant. And guys, real quick, just let people know what Cybriant does if they don't know before we sign off.
Sure. So we're a full-service cybersecurity company. We have a couple of different stacks. Our managed stack is the stack that Byron takes care of. With that, we handle managed SIM, managed detection and remediation, vulnerability management, including web application protection, as well as firewall as a service. The other part of that is we actually handle the patch management and vulnerability management of 800 different applications, operating system, and the remediation of configurations. The other stack would be our strategic services. Those would be penetration tests, risk assessments, mobile risk assessments, as well as vulnerability assessments. Byron, did I miss anything?
Nope, I think you got it.
Okay.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting our virtual summit. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and really kind of joining and speaking to our listeners. And we're going to get through this, guys. It's going to happen. At some point, this will end. People will walk outside again. You'll smell the sun, the fresh air.
Sunrise. That'll be an impressive thing to smell the sunrise.
It would be great, wouldn't it? It would be awesome. We are going to get through this, though, is the one of the most important things, and life will get back to some sort of new normal. But out of all this, we've learned one thing: this too shall pass, and we can survive just about anything as long as we've got enough toilet paper and frozen burritos and pizzas in our fridges and freezers. It will be okay.
I think that buying gum at CVS is still one of those, one of the allowed places. So if you're out of toilet paper, that's always an option.
Yeah. Although I did find on Amazon that the only toilet paper they still had in stock is the toilet paper with the faces of politicians on it. So I did order 200. I did order 100 rolls with the face of every U.S. senator on it, just for the sake of just being fair and even with every one of them.
Amazon today. We had Congress in there too.
Yeah, they did have a bunch of congressmen. I did order a few Congress people. I won't say their names because I don't want to get more death threats beyond calling Android users what I already did. So I will say that for that purpose, yes, I did order a bunch of Congress men and women's toilet paper as well. Hey, in the case of an emergency and you want to blame anyone, blame Congress.
An easy target.
Well, they ran for the job. They got the job. Get the job done. You're director of managed services. You don't get the job done. What happens? Fired.
Or something.
Yeah. Or you become like the official counter cleaner at Cybriant. Yep. We come in and see Brian.
More like a steaming bag of dog poo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows he messed up whenever something like that happens.
Guys, more coming up after this session. Until then, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks.